Customer harassment employee, child with Down syndrome, didn't realize Keanu Reeves was watching. It was a quiet afternoon at a small coffee shop in Los Angeles. Keanu Reeves, dressed in his usual casual attire, jeans, a black hoodie and a beanie, had slipped in unnoticed. He enjoyed his solitude, sipping a simple black coffee while scrolling through his phone. At the counter, a young boy named Tommy stood with his mother, eagerly looking at the display of pastries. Tommy, who had Down syndrome, was fascinated by the colors and shapes, pointing at different treats with a bright smile. "I want that one, Mom," he giggled, his excitement filling the air. However, the barista behind the counter, a young man with an impatient expression, sighed loudly. "Hurry up, kid, you're holding up the line," he muttered, rolling his eyes. Tommy's mother tensed. "He's just excited," she said gently, trying to keep the moment light. But the employee scoffed. "Yeah, well, we don't have all day." Keanu Reeves, quietly observing from the corner, placed his coffee down. His sharp eyes locked onto the situation. The warmth that usually filled his face vanished, replaced by a quiet but intense stare. Tommy, oblivious to the tension, happily pointed to a chocolate muffin. "That one, please," he said. Instead of kindly serving him, the barista let out an exaggerated sigh and slammed the muffin onto the counter. "Here," he said, looking away. That was enough. Keanu stood up and walked over, his presence suddenly towering over the counter. The moment the barista saw who it was, his face paled. Keanu spoke, his voice calm but firm. "Is this how you treat your customers?" The barista stuttered. I didn't mean." Keanu cut him off with a slight shake of his head. "Everyone deserves respect, especially children." He turned to Tommy and smiled. "Hey, buddy, you like chocolate muffins?" Tommy beamed. "Yeah, they're my favorite." Keanu nodded and reached into his pocket, pulling out his wallet. He handed the cashier a $100 bill. "I'll cover whatever Tommy wants, and I suggest you work on your attitude." The barista swallowed hard, nodding quickly. The entire shop had gone silent, everyone watching in awe. Tommy's mother looked at Keanu with teary eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. Keanu simply smiled. "It's nothing. He deserves to enjoy his day." As Tommy happily took his muffin and waved goodbye, Keanu gave the boy a fist bump. "Enjoy, little man." Then, just as quietly as he arrived, Keanu Reeves walked back to his seat, his job done, his coffee still warm. As Keanu sat back down, the atmosphere in the coffee shop had completely shifted. The barista, now visibly embarrassed, straightened up and began treating customers with more patience. A few people whispered among themselves, clearly impressed by what had just happened. Tommy, still unaware of the gravity of the situation, happily munched on his chocolate muffin. His mother, however, couldn't stop glancing at Keanu, her heart filled with gratitude. After a moment, she took a deep breath and walked over to his table. "Mr. Reeves," she said softly. Keanu looked up, his eyes kind but humble. "Please, just Keanu." "Keanu, then, I just wanted to say thank you. It means a lot that you stood up for my son." He shrugged lightly, offering a small smile. "No thanks needed. The world needs more kindness, that's all." She smiled, nodding. "You're right, but still, thank you." Just then, Tommy ran up to the table, his muffin now half-eaten. He looked at Keanu with wide eyes. "Hey, mister, are you in movies?" Keanu chuckled. "Yeah, I've been in a few." Tommy's face lit up. "Whoa, like Spider-Man?" Keanu laughed, shaking his head. "Not quite, but I do know a few superheroes." Tommy grinned and without hesitation threw his arms around Keanu in a tight hug. For a brief moment, Keanu was taken aback, but then he gently hugged the boy back. "You're nice," Tommy said simply. Keanu smiled, his heart warmed. "You're nice too, buddy." As Tommy ran back to his mother, she mouthed another heartfelt thank you before leading her son out of the coffee shop. Keanu sat back, taking another sip of his now lukewarm coffee. He didn't need recognition, applause, or cameras. Moments like this, small but meaningful, were what truly mattered. With a quiet sigh of contentment, he stood up, adjusted his beanie, and walked out into the streets of Los Angeles, disappearing into the crowd like any ordinary man. As Keanu stepped out into the bustling streets of Los Angeles, the cool afternoon breeze brushed against his face. He pulled his beanie down slightly and tucked his hands into his jacket pockets, blending effortlessly into the city's rhythm. A few people recognized him as he walked. Some whispered, some hesitated as if debating whether to approach him. But most respected his space, sensing the quiet humility that defined him. Just as he was about to turn the corner, he heard a familiar voice behind him. "Hey, Mr. Movie Star." Keanu stopped and turned around with a small smile. It was Tommy, holding his mother's hand, his chocolate-stained lips curled into a grin. His mother looked slightly embarrassed, but let her son have his moment. Keanu crouched down to Tommy's level. "Hey, buddy, what's up?" Tommy fidgeted for a second before finally blurting out, "Do you want to be my friend?" Keanu's smile widened. It was such a pure, innocent request. Untainted by fame or expectation, he extended his fist for a bump. "Of course, friends." Tommy excitedly bumped his small fist against Keanu's. "Friends." His mother chuckled. "All right, Tommy, let's not bother Mr. Keanu too much. He probably has somewhere to be." Keanu shook his head. "Not at all. This was the best part of my day." He looked at Tommy and winked. "We'll see each other again, okay?" Tommy nodded enthusiastically. "Okay, bye, Keanu." Keanu waved as they walked away, his heart lighter than before. As he continued down the street, he couldn't help but smile. Fame, fortune, and movies were one thing, but making a child's day, even in the smallest way, was something far greater. And with that thought, he disappeared into the city, just another kind soul in a world that needed more of them. As Keanu continued walking through the city, he couldn't shake the warmth he felt from his brief encounter with Tommy. There was something about the boy's innocent kindness that stuck with him. He had met thousands of people throughout his career, fans, directors, co-stars, but moments like these always felt the most real. After a few blocks, he reached a quiet bookstore tucked between two larger buildings. It was one of his favorite spots, a hidden gem where he could escape the noise of Hollywood. The little bell above the door jingled as he stepped inside. "Ah, Keanu, back again," said Mr. Patel, the elderly owner, smiling from behind the counter. Keanu nodded. "Couldn't stay away. Anything new?" Mr. Patel gestured to a small table near the window. "Just got some rare poetry collections in. Thought they might be up your alley." Keanu walked over and picked up a worn copy of The Prophet by Khalil Gibran. He ran his fingers over the pages, feeling their age. As he flipped through, he heard the door jingle again. To his surprise, in walked Tommy and his mother. Tommy gasped when he saw Keanu. "Hey, it's you again." Keanu chuckled, setting the book down. "Hey, buddy, what are you doing here?" His mother smiled. "Tommy loves books. Every Saturday we come here to pick one out." Tommy ran up to Keanu and tugged on his sleeve. "Do you like books too?" Keanu nodded. "I love books." Tommy's eyes sparkled. "Can you help me pick one?" Keanu glanced at Tommy's mother, who nodded warmly. He then turned back to Tommy and said, "Of course, let's find something awesome." The two of them wandered through the children's section, Keanu pointing out different books while Tommy excitedly flipped through pages. Eventually, Tommy picked out a colorful adventure book about a brave little astronaut exploring space. "This one," Tommy declared. "Good choice," Keanu said. "Space is pretty cool." Tommy beamed as he clutched the book to his chest. His mother paid for it at the counter, then turned to Keanu. "I don't know what it is, but you really made his day twice now." Keanu smiled. "I think you made mine." As Tommy waved goodbye once more, Keanu watched them leave, feeling something rare, a sense of quiet happiness that no amount of Hollywood glamour could ever replace. Mr. Patel, watching from the counter, chuckled. "Looks like you made a new friend." Keanu nodded, picking up The Prophet again. "Yeah, and I think he's the kind of friend we all need." With that, he bought his book, stepped out into the street once more, and disappeared into the evening, knowing that somewhere in the city, a little boy named Tommy was smiling just as much as he was. A small act, a big impact. That night, Keanu sat by his apartment window, flipping through the pages of The Prophet. The city lights twinkled outside, but his mind kept drifting back to Tommy. The boy's pure joy, his excitement over books, and the way he asked, "Do you want to be my friend?" Keanu had met countless people in his life, but there was something about Tommy's innocence that felt different. He wasn't awed by fame or money. He just saw Keanu as a regular person, and that was rare. The next morning, as Keanu sipped his coffee, an idea formed in his mind. He reached for his phone and made a call. "Hey, it's Keanu. I need a favor." A special surprise. A week later, Tommy and his mother walked into the bookstore like they always did. Tommy was as excited as ever, already bouncing toward the children's section. But this time, something was different. At the back of the store, where there used to be just a few shelves, there was now a cozy reading nook filled with colorful cushions, shelves packed with adventure books, and a small sign that read, "Tommy's Reading Corner." Tommy stopped in his tracks, staring at the sign. Mom, look, it's my name." His mother covered her mouth, eyes welling up with tears. "Oh my God, Tommy, this is for you." Keanu stepped out from behind one of the shelves, smiling. "Hey, buddy." Tommy's face lit up. "Keanu." He ran over and hugged him tightly. "Did you do this?" Keanu knelt beside him. "Well, I had some help. But yeah, I thought you deserved your own special place to read." Tommy spun in excitement. "This is so cool." Mr. Patel stepped forward. "Keanu told me how much you love books, Tommy. So now every kid who comes here will have a special place to enjoy stories, just like you." Tommy's mother wiped her tears, looking at Keanu with pure gratitude. "I don't even know what to say. This is incredible." Keanu shrugged with a small smile. "Books changed my life when I was a kid. Thought I'd pass that on." Tommy was already settled in his reading corner, flipping through a new book, completely lost in another world. Keanu watched him for a moment, feeling a rare sense of fulfillment. Sometimes the smallest acts of kindness had the biggest impact. As Keanu got up to leave, Tommy looked up. "Keanu, will you come back and read with me?" Keanu grinned. "Count on it, buddy." And with that he walked out of the bookstore, blending into the busy streets once again. Just a man who believed in kindness, making the world a little better, one small moment at a time. A friendship that lasts. Weeks passed, and just as he had promised, Keanu returned to the bookstore every so often to read with Tommy. Their unlikely friendship became a regular sight at Patel's Books. Keanu, one of the biggest stars in Hollywood, would sit cross-legged on the floor of Tommy's reading corner, flipping through adventure books as Tommy listened with wide-eyed excitement. One afternoon, as they sat together reading a book about pirates, Tommy suddenly looked up at Keanu with a curious expression. "Keanu, do you have a best friend?" Keanu paused, thinking. I have a few really good friends, but best friends, I'd say my dog is one of them." Tommy giggled. "A dog can be your best friend." Keanu nodded. "Of course. A best friend is someone who's always there for you, someone you can trust. Could be a person, an animal, even a book." Tommy thought for a moment, then grinned. "Then I think you're my best friend." Keanu's heart swelled. He had won awards, starred in blockbuster movies, and traveled the world, but nothing compared to the genuine love of a child. He smiled, giving Tommy a playful fist bump. "Then that makes me the luckiest guy in the world," Keanu said. Tommy beamed and returned to his book completely content. Word spreads. Unbeknownst to them, their simple story was beginning to spread. A customer at the bookstore had taken a photo of Keanu reading with Tommy, and soon the image went viral. Social media exploded with admiration for Keanu's kindness, and news outlets picked up the story. Hollywood superstar Keanu Reeves spends time with special needs child at local bookstore. The headlines were everywhere, but Keanu, as always, paid little attention to the fame. When asked by a reporter about his friendship with Tommy, he simply smiled and said, "He's just a great kid. It's not about me. It's about the joy of sharing stories." But one unexpected outcome of the attention was that donations started pouring into Patel's Books, allowing Mr. Patel to expand the children's section. Inspired by Tommy, he even started a program to give free books to kids with special needs. And it all started because one little boy wanted a friend. A story without an end. One day, Tommy's mother approached Keanu as they were leaving the bookstore. "I just want you to know how much this means to Tommy," she said. "He talks about you all the time. You've changed his life." Keanu shook his head, his expression warm. "He's changed mine too." As Tommy ran up and gave him another tight hug, Keanu knelt down beside him. "Hey, buddy, you know how stories don't always have to end? Some just keep going?" Tommy nodded excitedly. "Well, I think our story is one of those. We'll always be friends, no matter what." Tommy grinned. "Forever?" Keanu smiled. "Forever." And with that, the two best friends walked out of the bookstore side by side into a world that felt just a little bit kinder. A friendship that changed the world. Months passed, and Keanu and Tommy's friendship continued to grow. They met at Patel's Books every weekend, sharing stories, laughter, and quiet moments of understanding. Keanu had introduced Tommy to stories of adventure, knights, astronauts, and magical lands, while Tommy had introduced Keanu to something just as powerful, pure, unfiltered joy. One day, as they sat in the reading corner, Tommy looked up with a curious expression. "Keanu, do you think other kids like me love books too?" Keanu smiled. "Of course, buddy. Everyone loves a good story." Tommy's face scrunched up in thought. "But some kids don't have books. That's not fair." Keanu paused. Tommy was right. Not every child had access to books or a place where they felt safe to read and dream. That night, Keanu couldn't stop thinking about what Tommy had said. He had spent his life entertaining the world, but maybe it was time to do something bigger. Something that could last forever. An idea is born. A few days later, Keanu met with Mr. Patel and Tommy's mother at the bookstore. He had a new idea, one that could change lives. "What if we build more places like this?" Keanu said. "Reading corners in bookstores, libraries and schools, especially for kids with special needs. A place where they feel welcome, where they can explore books at their own pace." Tommy's mother covered her mouth in shock. "Keanu, that would be incredible." Mr. Patel nodded. "A wonderful idea, but something like that takes funding, planning." Keanu smiled. "Leave that to me." Using his own resources, connections, and influence, Keanu quietly launched a project called Tommy's Reading Corners. He didn't want fame or credit. He just wanted kids like Tommy to have a space to discover the magic of books. A movement begins. Word spread fast. Fans, publishers, and fellow actors heard about Keanu's initiative and wanted to help. Donations poured in. Schools and bookstores across the country reached out, eager to set up their own reading corners. Soon, Tommy's Reading Corners were appearing in cities around the world, and at the heart of it all was a little boy who just wanted to share his love of books. When Tommy's mother showed him the first photos of reading corners in other places, his eyes lit up. "Kids like me get their own books now?" he asked excitedly. Keanu ruffled his hair. "Yeah, buddy, and it's all thanks to you." Tommy's face glowed with pride. "Does that mean we're superheroes?" Keanu chuckled. "The best kind, ones who change the world with kindness. A friendship for the ages." As the years passed, Tommy's Reading Corners continued to grow. Keanu remained involved, often visiting schools and bookstores, reading to kids, and making sure the mission stayed alive. Tommy, now a little older, became a symbol of the project. He gave speeches, met other kids like him, and even helped design new reading spaces. One day, as Keanu and Tommy sat in their favorite bookstore, Tommy looked at him with a smile. "You know, Keanu, our story never really ended." Keanu smiled back. "That's the best kind of story, buddy. The one that keeps going." And so, their story lived on, not just in books, but in the hearts of every child who found joy in a Tommy's Reading Corner, all because one little boy dared to dream, and one kind man believed in him. The end. Or maybe, just the beginning. A legacy of kindness. Years passed, and Tommy's Reading Corners became a global movement. Libraries, bookstores, and schools around the world embraced the initiative, ensuring that children, especially those with special needs, had a welcoming place to read, dream, and explore the magic of stories. Tommy, once just a little boy excited about books, had grown into a bright young man. With Keanu's guidance, he had become a strong advocate for literacy and inclusivity, traveling to different cities to visit reading corners, meeting other kids like him, and spreading the message that books should belong to everyone. One evening, Keanu and Tommy sat in the original reading corner at Patel's Books, just as they had for so many years. The bookstore had changed, new shelves, new books, more visitors, but their friendship remained the same. Tommy, now a teenager, turned to Keanu. "Do you think we did something special?" Keanu smiled, his eyes warm. "I think you did something special, buddy. You changed the world." Tommy grinned. "Nah, we changed it together." Keanu laughed, giving him a playful nudge. "Yeah, I guess we did." A full circle moment. One day a special event was planned, an international celebration of Tommy's Reading Corners. Keanu had arranged for the biggest bookstore in Los Angeles to host a gathering where children from all over would come to read, share stories, and meet the man who had started it all, Tommy. As Tommy stepped onto the stage, hundreds of children and parents watched with admiration. He adjusted the microphone nervously, then took a deep breath. "When I was little, I thought books were just for fun," Tommy began. But I learned that books can be magic. They can take you anywhere, and everyone deserves to have that magic, no matter who they are." The crowd erupted in applause. In the front row, Keanu watched with quiet pride, his heart full. After the event, a young boy with Down syndrome, much like Tommy had been years ago, ran up to him. "Mr. Tommy," the boy said, holding up a book. "Will you read this with me?" Tommy knelt down, smiling. "Of course, buddy." Keanu, watching from the side, felt a wave of emotion. He had once been the one sitting there reading to Tommy. Now Tommy was the one passing it forward. As he stepped back into the crowd, Keanu realized something. This wasn't just Tommy's story anymore. It belonged to every child who had ever felt different. It belonged to every person who had ever been told they couldn't do something. And most of all, it belonged to every dreamer who believed that kindness, no matter how small, could change the world. A story that never ends. That night, as Keanu and Tommy walked through the city together, Tommy looked up at the stars. "You know, Keanu, I think books are kinda like stars." Keanu raised an eyebrow. "Oh yeah, how so?" Tommy smiled. "Even after the person who wrote them is gone, their stories keep shining." Keanu chuckled, wrapping an arm around Tommy's shoulder. "That's pretty deep, buddy." Tommy grinned. "I learned from the best." And as they walked on, the world around them felt a little brighter, because their story, their legacy of kindness, was one that would never truly end. The end. Or maybe just another beginning.